Good morning. Well, actually, you're probably watching this at any time. So, good day, good evening, good night. John Marshall, DrillMaster. I have an armed regulation sequence. Roll at high school. Now, I critiqued this privately months ago, and the individual who requested the critique said, "Listen, if it can help others," actually sent me the message this morning. Said, "If it can help others, then go ahead and critique publicly." And I love that. This is exactly why I publish critiques. So I'm starting to list there to one side. Oh, that's better. All right. So here we go. Team is falling in, and we will. Oh, I see. So the judge is right there under the basket. It looks like, and then the team is falling in by coming through the door, falling in by element. All right, I understand now. Okay, so let's click play. Good. All right, so when you fall in, you come to order automatically. So I get what you're doing. However, you fall in at order. You don't fall in at port. You don't have adequate spacing all around. Actually, you don't have adequate spacing. Element leaders are too close together. The ranks are now too close together. So you have a tighter than normal spacing here. You're supposed to execute facing movements at order, not port or shoulder. And that can be for safety. That's the only thing that I can think of. Why we can't execute facing movements with the rifle in our hands other than at order. So we don't have any description of facing movements other than at order. So it's generally assumed that you don't do that. And I get it too as well, because having the rifle barrel pointing any direction, whether it's at port or shoulder, whichever shoulder, then it tends to be a safety issue. So anyway, what you should have done is fallen in, and I'll talk while you're marching forward here. You should have fallen in and then got your dress cover interval and distance. Commander, you should be at sling arms, and you don't face with the flight. So what you did there, right there, what you did there is, see, anytime the flight has halted, and this goes for every service, anytime the flight has halted, anytime the platoon is halted, or the element or squad, whichever, anytime you're halted, the commander needs to face the formation, whatever formation that is. In order to give a command. So that's you number one, you should be at sling. Number two, you need to face the flight, and it looks like you're a good 3 steps away, so that's not too bad. So you may be wondering what manual the Air Force follows for drill and ceremonies when it comes to an armed flight. Well, it's kind of up to interpretation. The Air Force now pamphlet does a really lousy job of explaining. There's a small paragraph at the very beginning of the pamphlet that says, if you use this type of rifle, then look here. If you use that type of rifle, look there. And which doesn't make any sense. It might have early in the 60s or so, 70s even, but it really doesn't make any sense at all, and really needs to be worded to say, if you're an armed element or flight, then use the training circular, period. On a color guard, then you're going to use the Marine Corps Orders color guard section. that will show you how to execute movements with the rifle, because we march at the outside shoulder. But then again, Air Force JROTC has thrown all Air Force standards away and just gone with the training circular. Alrighty. So, and here, now, unless I'm mistaken, most sequences start with the report in, or maybe the halt centered on the judge. Well, a lot of times it's report in. So anything you do before the report in is fine. And again, the flight should be at, and you shouldn't do this. This is just a big waste of time, and you shouldn't go to sling in front of the judge. Now, unless it requires, if the sequence requires all of that, then I get it. I seriously doubt it does. So the flight should have been brought to order and not port. So did you report? Let's see. Let's go back here. All right. So you left them at port, I see, to report in. A lot of times the commanders will bring the entire flight to present arms, which doesn't make sense. Actually, it's just the whole formation doesn't report in. It's the commander that reports in. So you should have been at sling the entire time, commander, and the team should be at order. And see, there we go. Now watch as the so actually your spacing, your lateral spacing is good, which actually quite surprises me. But you can see now if an arm was brought up, you don't have the arm in 6 inches brought up in front. So we measure distance by bringing the left arm up and then leaving a 6-inch gap. It should probably be an 8-inch gap, but that's the general rule, is that 6-inch gap. So the hand here, remember that the hand doesn't point, because the arm is going to be slightly angled. The angle still needs to be maintained with the hand. The hand isn't pointed down, and it isn't tucked in under the butt as well, like this cadet has. And don't slide your hands up the rifle. Wherever the hand rests when you're at the position of attention, that's where the hand is going to grab the rifle. Wherever, doesn't matter, however tall you are, tall or even short you are. So flat knuckles, angled knuckles. Angled knuckles are the technique we're looking for here. Flat knuckles is actually a ceremonial technique. And that's so right shoulder with the elbow sticking out, that's not the proper technique. Elbow needs to be tucked. I really wish the camera was in front of the flight. So did you see the secondary movement of the rifles? So coming up, got to move forward here in my seat. So coming up to port, and then releasing the right hand and then grabbing it at the small of the stock, or even grabbing the butt. This is 15 count manual arm, so you're going to reach down and grab the butt. But if you notice, you'll see some rifles, they will be brought up to a certain point, but then as the hand is released and the right hand then either grabs the butt, in this case, you can see there's secondary rifle movement there, that really shouldn't be. You should bring the rifle up and then it stays there. I call that the port position. So wherever your hands are on the rifle, that's the port position. Only when your left hand is at the balance and your right hand is at the small of the stock is that port arms. That is the position of port arms. Everything else, this is the port position. This is the port position. Whatever, wherever your hands are, it's always the port position. And you can see here as well at present, some hands are sliding. So the rifle's brought to port, but then some hands are sliding up the rifle. And I'll show you this way. Leaving the left hand there and then just sliding the rifle through it. When the left hand needs to be at the balance, the pinky finger is going to be at the metal of the upper receiver always, whether at port or present. Way too fast. So the rifle needs to be grounded up against the shoe, all three toes aligned, your two toes and then the toe of the butt of the rifle, all of them need to be aligned. But that was much too fast. You count off in cadence, so it's count off, 1, 2, 3, just like that. This was, yeah, it was like a hit and run almost. So watch the rifle being picked up. So there's a slight dip in some of the shoulders, and I know that the rifle can be heavy for some, and that's just fact there. But try not to bend or at the waist to pick up the rifle. Try and maintain. You have a T or a cross even, so it goes from your forehead all the way down to your belt line, and then from shoulder to shoulder. All right. So that you can small letter T or a cross, whichever you choose to call it. But as you pick up the rifle, you don't want the T to bend to the side or forward. Okay, you don't want your shoulders to dip either. So you need to maintain that as you lift the rifle up for port or any other position, or lift the rifle up just to execute that side step. I'm going to check something in the training, well, not the training circular, but the Air Force pamphlet. Let me pause here. Just wanted to make sure, but I checked on page 35 of the Air Force pamphlet. The close and extend are in there, and boy, excuse me, every element that moves takes even numbered steps. So what you've done here is you have everybody's also supposed to halt together. Wow, that's just so 1, 2, 3, 4. So second element is going to take 2 steps in. First element is going to take 4 steps in. Now, if you're thinking, oh well, we have to end at close interval. Yes, you do, but we have to take we need to take side steps, and side steps are 12 inches. No, so you take metered steps. So you're going to take smaller, obviously smaller side steps, but you have to have that even number in there for every element. If you had 4 elements, then the first element would be taking 6 steps, second would be taking 4, and the third would be taking 2. So they are metered smaller steps but then you do need to end up at close interval, and here you are actually touching arms here. That's a lot closer than close interval. So here is where remember what I said about spacing to the front, arm and 6 inches. If you don't have that arm and 6 inches when you're in line formation, then this close and extend while you're in column, it's not going to work at all, especially if you have to take, well, not if, especially since you do have to take the 2 and 4 steps for second and first element respectively. So you have a certain visual memory, and I've talked about that in other videos, that you're used to the spacing. Wherever you're in line formation, you're used to that spacing in front of you. When you're in column formation, you're used to the spacing beside you, whichever direction, or both directions even. So that is a matter of training. So then extend is going to be 2 steps and 4 steps. 2 steps for second, 4 steps for first. So you're leaving your rifle behind as you execute the facing movement there. You can see some of the rifles, they're lagging behind, and then they're brought into the position. So they kind of stay behind with the with, in this case, the right foot, and then are moved a little later. So what you need to do is lift that rifle up on the first count and then set it down on the second. You lift it up and bring it over and then set it down. And it's a little difficult to describe. It's much easier to show you, but I just don't have the ability right now. So arms need to be horizontal, all of them. And you know, I was watching before, it looks like his arm is bent, kind of like, well, kind of like this. Obviously, it's horizontal, but look at this arm here. These arms need to be horizontal. It doesn't matter. And then don't hike your shoulder. It looks like she's hiking her shoulder. So, but then again, it could be the uniform blouse. So don't do this. All right, keep that shoulder down and just bring the arm up so that it's horizontal. It doesn't matter if the individual next to you, if their shoulder, this is their shoulder and this is your hand, if your hand is up here or if your hand is down here, doesn't matter. As long as your arm is horizontal, then you're within standards. Now notice here, the hand is behind the shoulder. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. If you're the Army, the Air Force, and now the Space Force, we all cover down when we go to dress rig. The other 3 services don't, and that's why they say cover after ready front. We don't give cover. And see, you're just way too close, and you're even closer now a little bit. So a side step is 12 inches. Looked like you were maybe doing 8, possibly 6. See how the rifles are held back, and then, yeah, you're doing tiny side steps. And commander, you need to march backwards, not take a step and then close, take a step, close, take a step, close. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to step, 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 step. So now let me watch the rifles here. So rifle butts need to be 3 inches off the marching surface. And then again, when you set them down, they all need to be grounded, all 3 toes aligned, every single time you set it down. And don't turn the rifle. I saw this, turning the rifle and then putting it on the shoulder. The rifle, the turn and the placement is all one movement. Just like we don't bring the rifle out and then turn it and then drop it into our hand for port, you're not going to turn it and then place it on your shoulder. It's all going to be one smooth movement. Elbow, right elbow needs to be tucked into the side. Follow, camera, follow. Please, 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 please. There we go. That's better. Thank you. So, let's see. It looked like, let's go back to here. Yeah, you're going straight into half step, third element leader, and you shouldn't. You need to take a full step on that first step after your pivot, and then enter half step. So you're entering half step with the left foot after the pivot. Yeah. And then also much of the team, if not all of the team, is toe striking on that half step as well. Yeah, you're all toe striking, and you shouldn't. The Air Force standard, just like the Army standard, is to heel strike, because the full step or the half step is just half of a full step. Oh, and that's that's not even half step. That's like an eighth step. You're just taking inches forward, maybe 3, 4 at the most. Half step is what? 12 inches, and it's measured from heel to heel. So the steps need to be much, much bigger. Now, when I wear my boots, the boot is actually 12 inches long, so I can place the heel of one foot can be at the toe of the next, not in line, but I still need my walking base. But I know that is the 12-inch step when I'm entering half step. Now, if I'm using the Army or the other service standards, then I'm going to use the 15-inch step. Tiny, tiny steps. Oh, I see. You did actually, third element leader, you did actually step out. It wasn't a full step, but it was larger than the half step you're using. So I see what you're doing here. So you are stepping out, but because your step size, the whole flight step size, is so much tinier, shorter than the standard, then I can see where you would think you're stepping out. So I want to see that flank again. Yeah, so you're not all right. You have different end steps. You're not maintaining your walking base, and then that first step is everywhere. So that you can maintain you're adjusting your feet so that you can maintain your alignment through that turn, but you're not adjusting your feet properly. So you're making up for a lack of proper technique going into the flank. So the commander calls left flank march. So we have left flank march. The next step you're going to take is still the 24-inch step. You're going to then pivot on that right toe, but not everybody is taking. That's what I call an end step. An end step is the last step in the direction of travel before you either halt or change direction. So in this case, you're changing direction to the left. So you're going to take that end step. Everybody's end step needs to be the same, 24 inches. Then you all should be pivoting. Now once you pivot, now let me turn that so that, okay, now you've pivoted. Now once you pivot, this first step needs to be another 24 inches, but I see steps all over the place right back here in this area so that you can maintain your center of balance and also get that alignment to the right and also alignment to the front. So it's a big compensation with this first left step that doesn't have to be if you initiate the flank correctly. So that first step needs to be 24 inches out in front of the right foot because you've just pivoted to the left. All right, but you need to maintain your walking base. The walking base is the distance from inside foot to inside foot. As we walk, we have a natural distance there of anywhere from 3 to 5 inches. So as you're walking forward, then you're always just going to naturally have that. It depends on hip width. Sorry. And just lots of other factors in general. It's probably a little more complicated, but we don't need to get into that. So there is that distance then in between the feet that you need to maintain. So if you execute the 24-inch step, execute the pivot, if you keep your walking base and push out that left foot in for that first 24-inch step in the new direction, you don't have to compensate for anything. It's all going to happen naturally. So you need to maintain your distance all around. Your elements are much too close to each other. But then the end step and then that first step, maintaining the walking base and also the distance, that's going to clear up all of the issues that are apparent to me right here. So face the flight, Commander. You're going to still face the flight. Face the flight when you give the command. You're going to execute a face-in march and mark time at the same time while the flight is passing in front of you. And then I know you're going to give another column left right here, but you're going to step off with the flight with another face-in march to the left as the center passes you. Oh no, to the rear, sorry. So let's look at that to the rear. All right, you're not so you're not executing that properly as well. So what you're going to do is, as the right heel strikes, to the rear, step, march. Now here is where the Air Force got this right. This is perfect. Execute a half step. For me, it would practically be heel to toe. Execute a half step, but the left foot is brought in line. You're going to walk that one step in a tightrope, okay? You're going to turn around, and then your first step after you turn around is going to be another half step, but with your walking base created. All right, that's where the Air Force got it wrong with that half step. It should be a full step because you already have the momentum, and now you're screwing up your momentum to march forward with that half step, but that's the standard. So it's that first step is not brought alongside your other foot. Wherever you're placing it, you're doing it incorrectly here. But so you turn around, create your walking base, and execute a half step, and then a full step with that right foot afterwards. And see how your elements are just much, much too close. Why did you call cadence? Do you have to call cadence? Is that part of the sequence? So if it isn't, then as a judge, I would mark you down. Now, why are you doing this, Commander? This doesn't make sense. And why are you using the Marine Corps cradle technique? You should be grabbing the whole rifle. No, you should be. And these steps are so tiny. So I don't understand. So second and first element leaders, leave your head turned. The third element leader is the only one who pops back because he just has to march forward. You have to watch for feet. So you're giving forward march, which you're supposed to do, but you're supposed to incline. Incline to the right, incline to the left. We're the only service who does this. You incline to the right, incline to the left, which means inclining does not have a pivot in it. So don't execute your pivots here. The whole point is to just naturally march forward. Just move over right in behind the lead element. So maybe, Commander, are you in marching band? Because that's a nice roll step, nice high heel. That's not marching technique. That's not military technique at all. So maybe you're taking, whoever designed the routine, actually whoever had you fall in here and have the judge here instead of the length of the court, having this is a weird setup. Now I understand the orientation here, and the orientation to have a column of files with along the shorter length of the court, that doesn't make sense at all. So whoever set this up has really limited the teams completely, which is really unfortunate. And then you have really, really close spacing here. So you don't. Army is the one that marks time and then gives halt. And Commander, I know you're going to give halt. Oh, you don't. Okay, good. All right, so got that right as far as call each element leader calling the halt, but you don't mark time. You come up into the position, and as you get there's the space between element leader and second rank, and then the space between second rank and third rank. Those spaces there, that's where you're going to call element halt, and you have to gauge it. You have to practice a lot, but then the element halts in place. Air Force doesn't mark time in place. Army does, and I appreciate it because you can get your dress cover interval and distance much easier that way. And then Commander, you're too close. The whole flight is much too close here. But again, this is more of a visual. And Commander, again, you need to face the flight. Oh, okay, all right. That's not double time. So, Commander, you probably went from sling because of this, because you have to change so quickly, but you can take the rifle off your shoulder and then carry it with the loosened sling to double time and then put it right back on afterwards, you need to look up double time. Okay, that's not double time. it's well, it's kind of close, but then again, it's so far from it. Double time doesn't require you to lift your toes. It doesn't. It also requires you to not land on your toes. It's still a heel strike, although that's poor running technique. You're not going to be double timing for an extended period, and everybody's technique needs to be the same. Just because you can lift your knees high doesn't mean that this is accurate, and you're not making any headway at all. You're just, it's a lot of up and down motion with very little forward movement, and that's not the point of double time. Double time is to actually move you out. So I'm not going to go over the standards of double time. You really need to look it up in the Air Force pamphlet and understand that double time has a large length step, and then the step technique that is required. You can see there's the different rifle positions here with the team, and also the speed in which you're going to execute double time here. Yeah, you shouldn't have shouldn't have tightened your sling. Now that's what you're supposed to do, Commander. But be 3 steps in front of the team. And all right, so commanders out there, I know Air Force JROTC sent out a message, I don't know when, saying you can march on either side for the eyes right. No, actually, you can't. That's not the proper technique. There's so few people who understand the context of what we're doing here. They just naturally assume certain things. This is not a parade. If it was a parade or a review, military parade or review, the commander would be out front with a guidon, either a flight guidon or a guidon bearer, and that situation would be taken care of to where the commander's in front, gives eyes right, and all of it's executed in that manner. This is not a parade. This is not a review. This is not simulating a parade or review. This is just giving eyes right to check technique while the team is being taken through this sequence of moves. Commanders don't need to change sides. No commander is on the left or on the right of a formation to give eyes right. That doesn't exist. That doesn't happen. That's not a technique at all. It's not a standard. The commanders are on the left of the formation. This is for every service, and you give eyes right like I said, a technique check. The judges should be looking at technique. I don't know if they are looking at technique, but they should be looking at technique. And to change sides is not appropriate. It's not part of what the team is supposed to do. And again, why are you calling cadence? Unless it's required in the unless it's required in the sequence, don't call cadence. It's not necessary at all. Why did you skip a step in there? Why did you add the step? It's eyes, right, ready, front. That's it. 2 consecutive steps. So if you hear the cadence of change step, you never change step. If you had somebody else, some other flight, or even an individual marching outside of the flight and didn't change step, the cadence with which you executed the change step, you didn't change step. You only adjusted your timing just a bit for the one step. So it's change step, march, step, step, step. Now, not next to each other, but I'm running out of camera space here. So here's the technique. We'll start here. Change step, march, step, step, step. It has to be step, 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 and not step, step, step. You don't change your cadence, or if you don't change the cadence with those 3 steps, step, 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 then you don't change your step. It just works out that way. And you tend to increase your tempo when you're at half step. I mean, just slightly. Now look at arm swing as well. So onto the rear, got to pin that free hand. And I saw a left hand left out in front of the body as the cadet was turning, but also there are hands that are, I'll use my right hand, hands that are swinging out and coming in, coming forward and then out, or coming across the body, but you want that nice arm swing. Air Force arm swing is exactly the same as the Army's arm swing. 9 to the front and 6 to the rear. We just measure it differently and say that it's 6 to the front and 3 to the rear. And unless this is some kind of requirement, there's no reason for you to change to Tighten sling. So I know this is the most expedient manner to exit, but you need to march any other time you're just adjusting your positioning. You can march in any direction, not a problem. It's just a few steps, 10 steps or less, around there. But if you're going to march any distance other than, say, 10 steps, then element leaders need to lead. And giving left face and forward march isn't the proper technique. And plus, they should have been brought to order, right face, and then you could even get counter column from there, and then have them just kind of fold in on themselves and leave. I know you want to get off the court as quickly as possible, but you really need to follow the proper procedure, unless you were told, through the SOP that get off. And then I saw the cones over here at the other part of the court. Maybe there was other performances happening on the other side of the court. I don't know, but boy, you were really cut short on your spacing. So that's, just not the lack of spacing was not really conducive to your best performance. But then again, there's some technique issues that really need to be addressed by the team, and then taken care of really immediately. And I know that this is a year old, and this is really for the up and coming team at the high school, and then also anybody else who's going to watch, who's going to spend 45 minutes listening to me talk. And then also, I'm noticing here that Air Force has all fingers closed and the thumb tucked inside the curl of the index finger. That's Air Force technique holding the rifle there, the grip on the rifle. Anyway, thank you so much, Roll at High School. I really appreciate you putting your team out there and letting others see mistakes, and really being humble enough to say, listen, if others can use this, then awesome. So I very much appreciate you. That was very nice of you, and I hope that this last 45 minutes has been educational. It's I know it's only a 9-minute, 9.5-minute video, but there's a lot of things going on that really needed to be addressed. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Watching. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it.